Hi, folks, with Tacitus Today. Tacitus Today, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio no pictures live stream. Please listen to this presentation as you would a radio broadcast, as you're driving along in your car or your truck and on public transport. In this essay, I want to talk about the claim that, and there's quite a bit of Western government sort of propaganda and globalist propaganda around that there's a chronic, not just a little bit, not just a bubby problem, but a chronic teacher shortage all across the Western world. And it's all happening at exactly the same time. So all the countries that are the recipients of mass migration of third world peasants suddenly have this teacher problem or shortage. Now, as I recall, I mean, I've been around long enough now to remember that every year or two, every few years, the media explodes with this thing of there's a teacher shortage. Now, whether there is or not, it's quite another matter, but it's a propaganda line that they love to push around, particularly the teachers' unions. So when the teachers' unions are screaming about it, when the globalist media propaganda lying propagandists are talking about it, then you know it's not really true, or that it's a cover story for something else that's going on. So let's have a closer look at this. Is there a teacher shortage, and if so, why? Now, we need again, with all statistics, they play around quite heavily. One minute, the reports and the studies and the surveys and so on, they're talking about only high school. Then they talk about primary and high school. Then they'll include kindergarten teachers and preschool type teachers. And whether you could really call them teachers is another matter. But anyway, and also this includes things like teachers' helpers in kindergartens. I mean, are they really teachers? Can you call them that? So that they jump back and forth depending on how big a catchment area of numbers they want in order to project the propaganda lies and the statistical anomalies they want to highlight. But anyway, let's get into this. There's a claim that there's a teacher shortage so acute that first-year teachers, like straight out of teachers' colleges, can be paid double the average wage, and when they're only 20, 21 years old. Now who would turn down that sort of opportunity? These are people who are so poorly qualified. Firstly, they're low IQ people who are waved through junior high school, who never would have had a chance of getting through junior high school, 30, 40 years ago. Then they're waved through senior high school with a diploma, particularly if they're a minority group. And then they're gifted a place at teachers' college, which is like a 2-year, well, depending on what's being studied, a 3-year sort of diploma type thing. And then they're given a position, sort of allocation by the teachers' union effect. So they're guaranteed a job. So now, in a lot of cases here, particularly with the weaker sort of students, the minority students, they're given scholarships in effect. So their education is pretty much paid, their teachers' training school is pretty much paid for by the taxpayer. So they come out of teachers' training college with no debt and a guaranteed job on $100,000 a year. I mean, who would or double the average wage is what's being touted. So who would turn that down? Nobody would turn that down. But apparently, it's not good enough. Now, the reasons they say, the two biggest reasons for or three, I guess you could call it, is the early retirement age for teachers. So teachers sort of over 60 don't really want to work, apparently. It's perceived as more a younger person's game. There's a few positions when you get to sort of mid-50s onwards where you're like the form master or the principal or something like that of the school, and those older people stay on, but the rest decide, no, there's not enough prestige to the role, and they decide to leave. Well, that's the claim. Now, the number one claim is that the reason teachers leave is because they're not given enough social status. I mean, what the fuck does that even mean? But that's apparently the biggest reason. The next reason is people leaving because of family reasons. Now, given that the vast majority of teachers are women, when you get the low-paid teachers' aides and kindergarten thing, if a woman has children there, then she'll tend not to work. But also you get this thing where couples, quite reasonably, by the way, decide, well, she'll go and be a teacher while the children are young, at high school age, so she's able to be home when the children are home, keeping school hours. She gets holidays when they get holidays, and when they reach sort of 16 or older and they can look after themselves, then she goes to maybe part-time teaching or gives it up altogether, as the case may be. So that's and I can understand that. That makes sense that people would live their life and have their lifestyle built around the family in this case, and that would be fair enough. And then there's other sort of lesser factors that such as the teacher wants a better job on better pay. And so they leave the profession to get a better job. The jobs they go to are typically in the public service anyway. They're not like they go out into the private sector and add value. They typically move to a public service or public sector, or maybe an NGO, activist NGO, that sort of thing, where they help the NGO recruit kids to be activist placard wavers and the like. So really, there's no obvious sort of reason why would you hire those sort of people if you know that they're going to quit, or a large number of them. The number of women teachers that quit within, say, 15 years, 16, 17 years, within the first 20 years at least of graduating or becoming teachers, is quite high. I mean, it's more than half are quitting or becoming casual. So there's some other lesser factors where, even though the teacher might be guaranteed a job coming out of training college, they're being given a posting in, say, a small rural town, or they're given a posting in a very high crime area, and the word is out that you can't drive your car there, otherwise it's going to be vandalized, and the students are so uncontrollable there, you're likely to get knifed or beaten up. So you can understand why people may turn down those sort of positions. And the teachers' unions are committed to putting as many women as they can into areas where there may be a lot of Muslim students, because they want to push this image of equality of women and so on, and force that ideology on the students rather than being sensible and practical about. But there's also another issue that's come up, and this was, I thought, interesting, where the American teachers' unions, at least, are saying that because of mass migration, there's a lot of kids that don't speak English. They come from all over the world, whether it's Hispanic kids. Now, they remember their parents are illiterate in their own language. They're third world peasants. They're illiterate in their own language. They're not sophisticated city dwellers from university-educated parents. Nothing like that at all. So the teachers' unions are arguing that these children have a right to be taught by people who speak their original tongue. So if they're Latin peasants, Latino peasants, then they have a right. Not just it would be nice if, or maybe if we could arrange it, they have a right to be taught by teachers that speak Spanish. Or if they come from Africa and speak, I don't know, Swahili or something, they have a right to be taught by teachers that speak Swahili. Or if they're Eskimos from wherever, then they have a right for teaching. Now, what this means is that there has to be, two things have to happen. There has to be a serious bump up in the mass migration, so that teachers from those third world countries are brought into the West to teach these illegal, illiterate peasants. Because remember, between 8 and 9 million just in the last few years, illegals have come into the United States, all speaking every language other than English. So they all need teachers. And if you took on a ratio, they want a ratio of sort of 25 to 1. So we're talking hundreds of thousands of teachers are needed to do the teaching here, or so the argument or the propaganda goes. On top of that, they want a reduction. Teachers' unions argue for reduction in class sizes. So that just simply increases the number of people that are needed to be teachers. So there's two things. Mass migration of third world people has to be increased to bring in teachers into the United States and around the rest of the first world, because it's all under the mass migration globalist push. And then to reduce class size, increasing again the demand for teachers. But thirdly, that the bar should be lowered so that if these third world peasant people don't meet first world teaching standards, who cares? Just lower the bar, and at least we can have a Spanish speaking person in the classroom so the children can identify with a native speaker rather than, well, hold on, stop. They've come to a first world country where English is the language. Shouldn't the children be learning that language? Shouldn't there be every effort made to help them learn that language? And the attitude coming back, or certainly that you can tease out of the thing, is that if by requiring them to speak English, given they're now an English-speaking country at school and English-speaking, by requiring them to speak English, it's in fact some way demeaning or makes out they're not as good as the rest or something like that. So therefore, we have to accept that. Why don't we just say they don't have to speak English? It's optional. If they want to, they can. If they don't want to, well, and also the idea, even if the children do speak English, their parents don't speak English. So there should be special Spanish language classes for children whose parents don't speak English. Oh, goodness me. So these are the sort of things that are being suggested. But is there an actual teacher shortage? Sure. Anyone can see that people might decide to retire and these sorts of things. But given how such low IQ people are being waved into the teaching profession now, and have been for quite some time, if you listen to teachers talking, you'd swear you're talking to you listen to the way teachers talk and talk to students, you'd swear that you were listening to I don't know, street sweeper or something, the lowest of somebody working in some really low paid retail job in the outer suburbs, because there seems to be no difference between people in that job and the teachers. They seem to be one and the same as far as you can tell. So they're not high quality. So given that they're already accepting very low bar quality people and they still can't find enough, even though they're giving them free scholarship paid education, but it's artificial in many ways, because the teachers that they're particularly singling out for this dream run are the lowest quality teachers, because they want to get diversity. We want as many black lesbians as possible and we don't care how we do it. And so the quality is going certainly downhill from what I've seen. When I think about the teachers at school, when I was at high school, compared them to what I see today, holy smokes, the difference. I mean, wow. The teachers, I didn't think much of the teachers back then, but compared to today, oh, shit. The quality's sort of nosedived. And still they reckon they can't fill the posts. Now, just looking at the pattern, say in Australia, where teaching is considered to be the least attractive profession, or a profession of lesser attraction, is in the cities where the cost of living is the highest. So in the high cost of living cities, teaching just simply doesn't pay enough. But if you're in a lower cost of living city, then it is considered to be a decent enough sort of profession. So if you're looking at, say, an average priced house in, say, Sydney, Australia's most expensive city, an average price, or dwelling, it wouldn't be a freestanding house. The average price is over $1 million. But in one of the cheaper cities, which generally has a lower wage structure anyway and fewer job opportunities, say you could buy that same place for $600,000 instead of $1 million, for example. then teaching is considered, because teaching is a federal wage. So the teachers are getting paid effectively, the same wage all over the nation, but living in a city where the cost of living is, or cost of property at least, is 40% less, then teaching is a relatively more attractive profession. So a lot of the teaching thing is related to cost of living, or some of it anyway. But everyone's sort of experiencing that. So it's not something that's uniquely impacting teachers. But if they're being offered, first-year teachers being offered double the average wage, it's going to then, it would still be an attractive proposition compared to, again, working in a retail store in the outer suburbs. So firstly, I don't believe there is a teacher shortage. I think there's a quality shortage, sure. I don't believe there is a teacher shortage. I believe that some people go into the profession to actually teach, but they're required to actually indoctrinate the student with propaganda, and they hadn't realised the full extent of that. So they think, hey, I don't really want to do this. I actually want to teach. You know, I don't want to have to push gay lesbian ideology on kids that really has nothing to do with teaching them how to read and write and so on. So I think that's an issue. But similarly, the people that they're looking to hire as teachers and trying to encourage to be teachers are people, low IQ people who would go along with that insane ideology. There's also I guess a thing, particularly if you're white, where these teachers have to, or are being required to teach hatred of white people when they themselves are white. You can imagine that may not work out so well as it plays out through the education system. So you'd imagine that they may want to leave. One of the biggest problems that is touted all across the West now is there's just way too many white teachers, and there should be black-brown teachers for the black-brown children to make them feel better, but it also should be black-brown teachers so that the humiliation and degradation and subversion of Western white society can continue apace. And particularly straight white males have to be put in their damn fascist Nazi place by the more enlightened black and brown peasant teachers and so on. So these, very, very much a Soviet type system is really sort of going on in the background there. But I don't believe there is a teacher shortage, and I believe the remedies that are easily at hand aren't remedies they're prepared to use. So anyway, that's my take on this supposed teacher shortage and the propaganda around it. Been a TAS Australia pushback channel. Thank you for listening.